Hi guys. So I found a way of talking on camera without showing my face. I can't do an impression, so I'm not even going to try. So I thought I'd discuss the wild camps. This is part 2 of the wild camp I did in Mary Tavy. Oh no, not Mary Tavy. My apologies. North Dartmoor, Solo Campton area. It's taken me a while to upload a few videos recently, but there are more coming. I've just got to edit them, which I'm pretty useless at, as you've probably realised. So how did I find it? It was really fun, as always, but it was one of my least enjoyable wild camps so far. I still enjoyed it, but it wasn't one of the best, and I'll go into why as follows. It was really quite windy. I don't think that matters normally, but if you don't have a tent that can withstand the wind really comfortably, I just don't think I'd really enjoy that. I was fairly lucky that my tent was A, designed to be in wind, and B, I found a really sheltered spot, but I can't think of anything more miserable than pitching up in really high winds and just hearing that flapping constantly for the whole night. That would ruin my sleep for the whole evening. So I did learn something from that, really. I don't think I'm going to... I think I'll always try and pitch a tent well out of the way of the wind. Just the noise, for me, yeah, I think that would almost ruin it, really. So I was really lucky that I could find somewhere as sheltered as I did. Secondly, by the time I put my my camping bed and my self-inflating mat inside the bed on top, it took up the entire tent pretty much. And it was also really quite high, so the tent ceiling was really very low. There's no way I could have sat up in the tent. You couldn't sit up in it even without anything in there, but it wasn't claustrophobic, it was just uncomfortable. Why squeeze yourself into something so low? So I see a lot of people with these Hilleberg Echoes and the Vango, what are they called, Banshees, and these tiny little things. And I guess if you're carrying them all day and you just want to go in there and sleep and that's all you're going to do, then fine. But I think I'd like more space and just find myself in a nice place to be for the evening. So it was great to get the storm force out again. I'm sure it would have handled far more wind than it needed to, but it did rattle, and I don't know if that's an age thing or whether it's almost inevitable that all of these cheap lightweight tents just flap constantly in the wind, and maybe there's nothing you can really do about that unless you buy the geodesic ones with dozens and dozens of poles crossing each other, so there's no real loose material to flap, perhaps. But yeah, so that was a bit of a disadvantage, I guess. And I suppose that was just based on the tool that I chose and its location. I could have gone further down the hill, but then that would have been even closer to civilization, and there didn't seem much point in that. Or I could have walked, if I'd had a lot more time, I could have walked up another tour or two and gone, further into the field, as it were. Speaking of which, I'm sorry I haven't got any more footage from the morning. My phone battery died, hence why I'm talking in here a day later. So what else did I find about the wild camp? What else? So yeah, it was very windy, but there was one saving grace, and the saving grace was this copy of the Trangia. It's amazing. £12, and it's really, really good. I really, really liked it. It wasn't super quick, but actually I've started to realise that speed is massively overrated when it comes to food. I suppose if you had to boil something, if you wanted to melt snow, then speed is obviously really useful. But just for sort of tinkering around, at least when you're cooking for one person, this is really good. It's not enormous, however, so I think if you're cooking for one, it's fine. Two, it's also fine. I think you could easily boil, a couple of tins of beans in these things. You could easily heat up, a couple of tins of curry or chili con carne, or just heat up loads and loads of noodles. I think that will be fine. But if there's sort of more than two of you, I think this is going to be too small. The other disadvantage with it is that because it takes a little longer, if you were cooking more than one course, or more than one component to a meal, say chili con carne with rice, you're never really going to be able to keep both things hot at the same time. Inevitably, one's going to cool down and get slushy and soggy, while the other one's still cooking. Whereas with a gas stove, you can kind of half cook one thing, it will stay fairly warm, hopefully, cook the other thing, and then just blitz the original thing back on the gas stove. And you can just about, it's just, that's an advantage of speed. You can kind of juggle everything together at the same time. But if you're on your own, or there's maybe two of you and you're having a fairly straightforward meal, I really like this. This is everything you need compared to my gas stove, my huge canister. Admittedly, there's no fuel in here, but and this. And the difference in weight, this is definitely heavier, and it doesn't even include the stove. So this is admittedly really old and overkill. But so I think this might be coming out with me quite a bit more. I know that meths is less efficient than gas. It is slower, and safer for sure. But I know you use more meths to release a certain amount of it to heat up, per cup of water, or to get a certain amount of heat out of it. So you need to carry more fuel. But I don't know. I'm starting to think maybe it's worth it. Also, a gas canister. Even a 250 gram gas canister is probably still £3 or £4. Whereas even if you're using more meth than that, so let's say you're using twice the meth, a 500 milliliter thing of meth, if you buy it wisely, that's only £1 or £2. So it is a little cheaper as well, really. That actually was the most fun part of the day. Was that I think my bedding did spoil it for me. The slightly windiness and the bedding did spoil it for me a little bit, unfortunately. In terms of a spot, it works really well. I have camped there before years ago, but haven't been there since. So what else did I think? The wind wasn't on my side that evening. But other than that, it was a typically normal and fun trip. It's quite a trek up the hill. You do work up a bit of a sweat. And it was just so windy. I still don't know how windy it was. So it's made me realise that perhaps I need to find another tent. I need a tent which is bigger than the Stormforce, the one you saw yesterday. Maybe even a little larger than that blue one, actually. But preferably the same sort of weight. The blue one's 2.5 kilos. That Stormforce is more like 3.5. Something around the 2 to 3 kilogram mark would be great. But I would want it to be able to handle decent amounts of wind with no flap, handle the wind, no flapping, or minimal flapping. And even the teepee I have, even the Robins Fairbanks flaps in the wind, and given its size, it's a pain to carry everywhere. And maybe just a bit bigger as well, a little bit more living space. The blue one's just about okay, but for two of us, it's definitely not. I would want something a little bit bigger if I could, but one that I could still carry without breaking my back. Because otherwise, I might as well take the Robins Fairbanks with me. If I'm prepared to carry something with loads of space and which is really heavy, I might as well take the Robins Fairbanks. But that not at nearly 10 kilograms, that's a bit of a beast, So yeah, it's made me realise I've got that slight hole in my quiver of gear, and I'd really like to find a bedding solution that really works, because I still carrying, I don't even know how much it weighs, but carrying that canvas bedding and carrying the inflatable mat as well. I mean, it must be 5 kilograms, just that stuff. And there's other people out there with these really expensive sort of inflatable mats which probably weigh 400 grams. And I just think, what am I doing wrong? I really need to work on that a little bit. I need to research it more, really. I don't want to spend a fortune on these inflatable things, but something which I can really get a good night's sleep on would be really useful. So there you go. Excuse my yawning. Sylvester Stallone's tired this evening. What else did I find about that evening? That's pretty much it. Oh, another mistake I made, and part of the reason I didn't sleep brilliantly, which was because I was quite full. I'd eaten too much food. I had a large hot chocolate. you know, 400 millilitres, nearly half a litre of hot chocolate probably, and then there's 2 big tins of curry and some goat cheese. It was just too much food. Um, I also when you're wild camping, you inevitably pitch up quite late and then you eat quite late, and because it gets dark, you go to sleep quite early. I don't think any of that's particularly good for me. So I think in future, even though wild camping is all about the food, I'm gonna be a bit more restrained in future and eat a little less before I go to bed, and hopefully that'll mean I'll sleep a bit better as well. Um, so yeah, there you go. Not much else to discuss. I'm not sure when the next camping session will occur. It might be this weekend with a bit of luck. Probably in the Robins Fairbank because I doubt I'll be alone. But it might be somewhere else. I don't know where. Maybe have a bit of an adventure somewhere. But if visiting the Fairbanks, it won't be too far off the beaten track because it's so heavy, of course. What else? I think that's pretty much it, really. I really like kit. That's one of my favourite things talking about. Oh, my sleeping bag. That was it. I'm in a bit of a dilemma about a sleeping bag as well. I've got a really old, really heavy sleeping bag. It's perfectly warm at the moment, but it's supposed to be rated as 4-season, and it's bare. You know, it's okay at the moment, but I don't think it will last into much into the autumn. To be brutally honest. So I'm going to have to replace that at some point. But do I go for something really lightweight? The problem with sleeping bags is they're so itchy and they've got that horrible, clammy, cheap, you know, synthetic surface, and it just feels instantly like someone sweated on it for months, and I just don't like it at all. But I did go outdoors, and I found this big sleeping bag that you could zip it completely open. It would then act like a duvet almost. It was big and it was heavy, but not massively heavier than my current one, although still really quite heavy. And I thought I could possibly use a compression sack, and it might be worth it. If it means that I can sleep like a king, then that might be worth it, I thought. Combine that with maybe some kind of a better sleeping mat, and I might end up sleeping like an absolute log, and it will save me bringing all that stuff. So that's kind of on the to-do list. And other than that, that's about it. So I shan't even attempt a Sylvester Stallone impression. But yeah, here we are. I hope you enjoyed the videos recently. I'll try and get another one out this weekend, or at least I'll film this weekend. I'll probably take me a couple of weeks to put it up like it has this time, which is why you've got 2 in a row, because they were actually like a week apart, but I've just put them up now because it's just easier. Yeah, so hope you enjoy, and I shall speak to you another time. Cheerio, bye bye.